Shabbat Shalom, blessings and honor and power to the Father Yahweh and to the Messiah Yahweh Shai, who is his word made flesh, and our intercessor as the high priest, the one who conveys to us through the Father's Spirit what the Father wants to communicate to us, the one who reveals the future to us that Father has given him. Glory and honor to Yahweh Shai and to Father Yahweh. Blessings and glory and honor to the truth of his word in written form as well. Praise the Most High. Greetings to the 12 tribes scattered by slavery through the whole four corners of the earth and now awakening. Greetings to the 144,000, the forerunners of the Messiah, the last forerunners, representing the two witnesses of Moses and Elijah. Greetings to the Gentiles who are coming to this truth of the perfect righteousness of the Father and of his word and Messiah, the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Greetings also to everyone in the chat. Naviska 23, Only One Way, Isha Shama, Gary Joseph, Akmar, just visiting, Imana Bakash, my brother Yakoba Ben Israel, Heavenly Garden, Stephen Kelly, all of you and more visiting as we are studying these be the words, Deuteronomy, Adabarim, these words, praise the Most High, these be the words. And we are in chapter 22. Last night we talked about the second half of chapter 22 regarding the woman. See, when you are reading the Bible, brethren, we have learned that you don't want to just take a verse and think you have an understanding of what the Bible is saying concerning that subject. It's best to get witnesses from around the Bible, different parts of the Bible. And so I've seen and many times talked to people who misinterpret things based on just looking at a verse and thinking they understand what it means or what the context of it is. And you could do the same thing in the Old Testament. That's why I try to, before we actually get into the actual meat of what we're studying, I try to get into the subject matter from different parts of the Bible so that when we come back to that, you have an idea of what the entire Bible, what all of the witnesses, the 40 witnesses of the Bible, what they're saying, what the Most High is saying through them. And so like last night, we talked about a woman. And in Deuteronomy, it talked about a woman betrothed to a man and the different circumstances regarding that. And if you just read it by itself without understanding the whole context of the Bible, you might even think, man, he's pretty tough on women, right? He's pretty tough on his sisters when you look at being stoned and things that was going on like that. But when you understand the importance of the woman, from the Bible perspective as a whole, and her importance in terms of her symbolism of the purity of the nation, then you will understand why he seems so tough on sisters when you look at Deuteronomy, because the purity of the sisters is the purity of the nation, okay? And the moral uprightness of the sisters is the same moral uprightness that's going to help raise your children. Okay. And so you understand how it's very important to the Most High that the woman be pure, that she be virtuous, that she be holy and set apart, that she respects herself and her creator. Very important, right? In the growth of a nation, in the growth of the Israelite community. So today we're going to do a similar thing in that we're going to talk about order, how the Father has set everything in an order. And again, let's start in Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1. In the beginning. Genesis chapter 1. And I'm going to begin in the beginning in Genesis chapter 1 and verse 1. And I'm going to read from verse 1 down to verse 13. Genesis chapter 1 from verse 1 to verse 13. Today we're talking about a natural order. There is a natural order. There is a way that the Father has set things up and a reason for him setting them up the way he did. In the beginning, Yah created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of Yah moved upon the face of the waters. And Yah said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And Yah saw the light that it was good. And Yah divided the light from the darkness. And he called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. Now, even this, people get very confused. I've seen people say, for example, day is only while the sun is up, and night is not day. And so when he says the Sabbath, he's only talking about daylight hours. But if you read this, he had light and he had darkness, and he called the light day and the darkness night. But then it says the evening and the morning were the first day. So there's daytime as in daylight, and then there's a day as in evening and morning. See? And you know, brethren, over the many times of reading this, I am learning all the time. And one of the things I learned, and I don't want to suggest to you that you learn the way I learn, because everybody learns differently. But I have learned to not try to answer all of the questions of why, unless the Father shows us why, but just to accept what it is. Like, it is what it is sometimes, right? So I just accept this is what he says, this is what he did, that's what it is. There are a lot of people that try to question whether this actually happened or why it happened or whatever. I just accept what it is. Now, when he called the light day and the evening and then the darkness night, if you notice, there's no mention of the sun. There's no mention of the sun. So somebody would say, well, there's no sun. Where'd the light come from? So let me ask you, according to what you know in the Bible, if there's no sun yet, where did the light come from when he said, let there be light? Where did the light come from? From what you know of the Bible. Yes, thank you, Imam Bakar. The Father himself is light. And you remember how, in fact, when you look at, if you look at Revelation, and we can look at Isaiah also for another witness, but we don't need to for this particular situation. But in Revelation chapter 21, talking about the New Jerusalem, Revelation 21, and let's look at verse 22 and 23. Actually, from 22 to 24. I'm gonna read from 22 to 27. I just gotta read the whole thing. So from 22 to 27. And I saw no temple therein, for the Most High Yahweh Al Shaddai and the Lamb are the temple of it. And the city had no need of the sun, neither the moon to shine in it, for the glory of Yah did lighten it, and the Lamb is the light thereof. And the nations of them which are saved shall walk in the light of it, and the kings of the earth do bring their glory and honor into it. And the gates of it shall not be shut at all by day, for there shall be no night there. And they shall bring the glory and honor of the nations into it. And there shall in no wise enter into it anything that defileth, neither whatsoever worketh abomination or maketh a lie, but they which are written in the Lamb's book of life. So you can see, Father himself and Messiah are light. So when he says, let there be light, he's shining on it. Oh, good question, Imam Prakash. It's just no night at the city itself. There'll be night around the earth, but it says the city itself has no need of the sun, and there's no light. There's no night there. It's at the city itself. See, so at that center of the earth, of which the New Jerusalem will be, there's no night. See, there's no night there. It's always light. Okay, praise the Most High. Good question. Good question. So it says there's no need of the sun or the moon to lighten it because the Father gives it light. It's always light. And so that particular place is always going to be light. But around the earth, there'll be day and night, and morning and evening, just like he made here, evening and morning. Does that make sense? So you have evening and morning, and evening and morning. And that's why in the Bible, the day starts in the evening, according to the Bible. Notice the order. He said in the evening and the morning were the first day. So you have, yeah, exactly. Kind of exactly. There's times in Alaska where there's light for like 6 months, right? That's right. Or light, I don't know how long it is. It's like a month. There's a time in Alaska, I don't even know, but there's a time in Alaska where it's continually light for a period of time. For a period of time. Yes, exactly, Brother Cascade. So again, so the evening and morning are a complete day. So a 24-hour period consists of evening and morning. And it starts with the evening. And it makes sense. And again, why does it make sense? Because darkness was first. It was dark, and then there came light. And together, that's a day. Does that make sense to everybody? So in a 24-hour period, the Bible is telling us it starts as darkness and it ends as light. And when it comes back to darkness, it's a new day. Okay, that's why when we keep Shabbat, it starts at night and it goes through a day. And then the next time it's night, it's not Shabbat anymore. So it starts on Friday at what we call Friday at night. That's Shabbat. And then today during the day, that's Shabbat. And then tonight, it's a new day. Tonight, it's really the first day because you're starting a new day, evening to evening. That's right. So when Messiah was resurrected, we would call it Saturday night, right? And it was after midnight, but we would call it Saturday night. And even the heathen, they count midnight to midnight, right? That's what the heathen do. And so midnight's a new day for them. So that's why it's the first day of the week. It was before sunrise. So it was between midnight and sunrise, between midnight and when the rooster crows, Messiah resurrected. Okay, so that's why we have the days the way we have them as far as following the Bible. It's evening first, then morning. Okay. Now, even in the Bible, people work during the daylight hours pretty much, right? You have people that work at night, but I'm saying generally people work during daylight hours. And that's why Messiah said, are there not 12 hours in the day? I must do the works while it is day, because the night cometh when no man can work. Okay, but a 24-hour period of a daytime is evening to morning. All right, Genesis chapter 1. That's the order of day and night. Genesis chapter 1, verse 6. And Yah said, let there be firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And Yah made the firmament and divided the waters which are under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And Yah called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. So what did he make on the second day? A firmament. That's why some people say there's a dome over the earth. The dome is the firmament of the earth. He made it. He said there was firmament under the there are waters under the firmament and waters above the firmament. And he called it the firmament. I mean, that's just an atmosphere. You see what I'm saying? So, but for sure, there's an atmosphere called the firmament over the earth. It says it right there. Like you can't escape that. Now, you can argue what you think the firmament is, but it says it. It says it divides the waters. It divides waters. There's waters underneath the firmament and there's waters above. And he said the firmament he called heaven. So that's in the sky. That's above. Heaven is above, right? So you can see that there's a sky, and in the sky, there's this protection that he's calling the firmament, and there's waters above the firmament and underneath the firmament, and it's all called heaven. Y'all got me? Mm-hmm. That's right. That's why he calls the third heaven what he calls it, because you have the firmament level, that's heaven. Then you go past that, you're in a space where you can see stars and it's dark from where we are. That's the second heaven. And then you go past that to where man cannot go. That's the third heaven. Okay. Praise the Most High for his word. You know, again, if you just read it, if you start in Genesis and you go to Revelation, if you want to actually follow the Bible, it will teach you everything you need to know about everything. You understand? But when you're reading parts of it and you're trying to interpret things without having, like, look what we just did. What did we just do? We looked at Genesis chapter 1. Then we went to Revelation chapter 21. And I mentioned Isaiah because the same thing in Revelation is in Isaiah and in Ezekiel as well. So you start to get an idea when you see. I've seen a dude do a video about day and saying it's just daylight. It's not night. And he even used Hebrew for day. And so some brothers was on Facebook and they was just arguing with me about that. And I showed them evening and morning, the Hebrew it says evening and morning for day, it says that. And then there's daylight. And then they understood, and they hadn't done enough. They hadn't even looked it up. And somebody was coming up with a doctrine and everything, man. And I've seen doctrines for all kinds of stuff. But when you look at the Bible in its entirety, and this is why I say the 66 books really are enough, because to me, from the people I've met, and including myself, when you start looking at all these other books, you get confused. You get confused. I mean, other books called holy books, you get confused. And you know why? Because it's not in line with this one. That's why. That's why you get confused. When you look at Genesis through to Revelation, no Apocrypha, just Genesis to Revelation, and you read that, man, you'll get so much clarity that when something comes into your spirit, into your sphere, that's not according to that clarity, you will pick it up like radar. You will pick it up like radar. Okay? So praise the Most High. So yeah. So we know now the Bible just showed us there's a firmament of water called the heaven. Okay, it's the high, it's high. It's things that are high, but it's not things that leave the atmosphere of the earth. Can we agree that that's what we just saw? It's because this is what the Most High is doing. In the beginning, he created the heaven and the earth. So it's not things that leave the atmosphere of the heaven and the earth. It's in the atmosphere of the earth, but it's called heaven, the first heaven. Okay, praise the Most High. Okay, verse 9, Genesis 1:9. And Yah said, let the water under the heaven be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. And Yah called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas. And Yah saw that it was good. And Yah said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, and whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit whose seed was in itself after his kind. And Yah saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the third day. This is the first time in this narrative you're seeing the mention of after his kind. Now, people have abused that term, but the point is that there's an order of things after their kind. Like you shouldn't try to mix things that are not of the same kind. Does that make sense? Like you shouldn't mix the seed of an animal with the seed of a human because they're not of the same kind. You shouldn't mix seeds of different fruits or vegetables to create some because they're not after the same kind. Or you shouldn't try to grow fruit that has no seed because it's not after its kind. And that's where we're going here today. See, we're going to the order after its kind. Everything with the Father Yah is in order of after its kind. Now, there are people, and let's get to the root of this real quick, that'll say white people and black people are not of the same kind. I know people that will tell you Caucasian people aren't even human. And then there are Caucasian people that will say black people aren't even human. They're animals. But let's talk about the truth of it. The truth, brethren, is the Father is the creator of all people. There's no people upon the earth that weren't created by Father Yah. And the people of the same kind are the people that are following the same Father. Messiah talked to people that were bloodline Israelites. And he told them, you're Abraham's seed, but you have a different father. And they didn't catch what he was saying until he came out straight. And he said, you're of your father, the devil. So they were Abraham's seed, the same bloodline as Messiah himself. And he said they served a different father. That made them of a different kind. Are you following me? That's a different kind. That's not the same kind. Father wants us to be equally yoked with the same, after the same kind, which means we're after the same creator versus another after the same creator. Now, oftentimes, people of different cultures cannot comfortably get together. Why? Because they're not of the same culture, and therefore they're not of the same kind. Sometimes people with different cultures can work it out. But I'm just saying, in general term, when you have a different culture, it's a different kind. Now, with regard to, and I'm going to go straight again to this scenario, black and white. In the United States of America, okay, in the United States of America, the Caucasian people here have been raised in the culture. And the black people and the Hispanic people, because that's mostly what you got here, Hispanic, black, and Caucasian. You have Asian too, but they represent like maybe 2 or 3% of the whole population of the United States. Generally, you're dealing with Caucasians and you're dealing with Hebrews. And you're dealing with people of the northern tribes, which are, I call the northern tribes, which are Spanish. So you have different cultures. In the European culture, where the Caucasians of the United States roots come from, there's a certain spirit of entitlement. Can you see that if I said that? Is that incorrect? Is there a spirit of entitlement? There's a spirit of entitlement that has been around since they've been here. It's the same spirit of entitlement that allows them to come to the United States and say, I'm going to kill the inhabitants that are here and take their land and claim it as mine. That spirit is what exists all through history of the people that have been here. Okay, that's an entitled spirit. Versus a Hebrew from the west coast of Africa didn't voluntarily come here. He was brought here as a slave to the entitled people. And that spirit of having been brought here as a slave is the spirit of being oppressed that we still have. So now you have a person of an oppressed history in spirit and a person of an entitled history in spirit. The color of the skin is irrelevant. It's where the entitled is the spirit that you come from. And that creates the problem. Okay? That's where the problem is created. Because people want to ignore the spirit of their ancestors, the history that makes you who you are. But to ignore it is to be a fool because it exists. To ignore things that exist, you're a fool. But that's just in a synopsis. I really made it very simple for our example here. But that's why there's a lot of times an issue with black and white because of the culture which each was raised into, the spirit of history that makes both of them who they are. No matter what they were raised with in this, I've heard white people say, I don't see color. Well, you're lying because there's colors everywhere. This is color. This is color. There's colors everywhere. You can't say you don't see color. What they're really trying to say is I don't differentiate between black and white. That in itself is a lie. You have to. Why do you have to? Because it's who you are. It's where you come from. It's what makes you who you are. You could try to love everybody, but to try to act like there's no difference is willful ignorance. Okay. And yes, you can take a dark-skinned black person and raise them around the culture of the Caucasians, and they could have that culture and they could act like that culture and they can sound like that culture. But the minute they walk in the wrong place at the wrong time, they're going to know that they're different. Or how well they speak the king's English and how well they understand the culture. There is a politician, Condoleezza Rice. She was the first woman, black woman that was secretary. I think she was Secretary of State. She held a cabinet position in George Bush's White House. And she is intellectually a genius. Like, she graduated high school at 15. I think by the time she was 18, she had her master's degree from college already, gotten her bachelor's and her master's. And I read a story about her where she was in college, and the class was about European history, and she was making comments, and the professor was almost trying to tell her, you really don't know what you're talking about. And she said, to me, one of the most important things she ever said, but she said, I know more about your culture than you do. And what did she mean? That was deep. What did she mean? What she meant was, having been raised in a culture dominated by the European, having experienced all that the European has built for himself and not for us, we totally understand where you're coming from. You don't want us to really understand, but we do. We understand exactly where you're coming from. See? In fact, we understand too much. We understand too much. You understand? So that's what it means when you're of a different kind. Your culture can be so different. Your culture can be so at odds with other cultures that you're a different kind, even when you don't want to be. It takes a miracle of Yah's spirit for such a person to come to truth. That's why I say, when I see children of Yafet coming to this truth, it's a miracle. It really is. Y'all don't know. It's a miracle. You understand? It's a miracle, because to have all of that history of privilege and aggressiveness, and the Bible calls Rome made of iron, like crushing and bruising. and that was the children of Yafet. They made the crown jewel of Asatan's religion in Christianity, and it's aggressive. It's I'm going to dominate you, and I'm going to make you take my culture, and I'm going to call it civilized. For that type of background, for that person to come to this truth is a miracle. It really is. It's powerful. Okay, and I praise the Most High for the Caucasians and children of Yafet that have come to this truth. Okay, it's a tremendous miracle by the Most High to change a man's spirit or a woman's spirit. It's powerful, man. It's powerful. See, for us that are of the bloodline, it's still a miracle also because of how we went through not even knowing who we were. So that is a miracle. But at the end of the day, when you understand what the Bible says about the history and the order of things, we are built. We are made. We are created to be Father Yahs. Just simply looking at the names. Abraham, father said, Father, your name's not Abraham anymore. I am making your name Abraham. And your son, the one that's going to be the chosen seed, you're going to call him Yasha'ak. Therefore, and now Yasha'ak has Jacob. Yasha'ak has Jacob and names him Jacob. And father said, no. Your name is Yasharah. So Father named his ones that he chose. Therefore, we were created to be his. And he shows forth his power in bringing us back to what he originally wants us to be, what he made us to be. See? So in that regard, that is why the Bible says the Hebrews come to Messiah and to the Father through Messiah by faith. And the Gentiles come through faith. Let me show you that in Romans chapter 2. Romans chapter 2. No, I'm sorry. It's Romans 3. It's Romans chapter 3. And Romans 3 goes into the doctrine, which I tell you all continually is the most important doctrine in the Bible, the doctrine of justification or righteousness by faith. And it's the doctrine that the Apostle Paul spends most of his time on because it's the most important doctrine. And he's trying to bring Gentiles to the truth. So he's bringing them to the truth through first, what's the most important doctrine? Justification by faith, causing a man that is a sinner to be made righteous. That's the most important doctrine. And he says it to the Gentiles because it is assumed, and if you read Hebrew, it is assumed the Hebrews that are converted after the order of Messiah knows these things already. Okay? But when you get to I just saw that. When you get to Christianity, they start just focusing on Paul without any Hebrews, without any other witnesses, and then they come up with it's doing away with the law. Well, that's what you expect from Gentiles, isn't it? It's doing away with the law because they lawless. But here in Romans 3, it gives you the justification by faith doctrine, and it's teaching you at the end of it how Jews and Gentiles come to this truth. And notice what it says. I'm going to start at verse 19, from 19 down to 30. Now we know that what things soever the law saith, it saith to them who are under the law, that every mouth may be stopped, and all the world may become guilty before Yah. So the law is for everybody, and everybody's guilty of breaking it. Everybody, okay? Therefore, by the deeds of the law, there shall no flesh be justified in his sight. For by the law is the knowledge of sin. So we know what sin is by the law, because the law teaches us to avoid sin by obedience to it. But since all of us have been disobedient, we've all broken the law. We're all sinners and we're all guilty. Therefore, you can do wrong and then try to do right, but it doesn't erase what you just did. So if I murdered somebody, and then I repent for my murder, it doesn't change the fact that that person is dead at my hands. See? So I can do future deeds, but it doesn't make up for my past sins. Okay? It doesn't make up for my past sins. Man would like you to believe that, but no, the Bible doesn't. Once you do a deed of sin, once Adam bit that fruit, there was no going back. There was no going back. That's it. Okay, there was no going back. And that's it. That's what it is with sin. Once you commit it, there's no going back. You're in sin now. And now he's saying, so by the deeds of the law, no flesh is going to be justified or declared innocent. That's what justification means, to be declared innocent. You can't be declared innocent once you're guilty. You understand? Once you're guilty, you're guilty. It's like saying, some woman saying, I might be half pregnant. Really? Let's continue. Verse 21. But now the righteousness of Yah without the law is manifested, being witnessed by the law and the prophets. Even the righteousness of Yah, which is by faith of Messiah Yahushua, unto all and upon all them that believe, for there is no difference. So there's Father's righteousness that is Messiah's faith, the faith of Messiah. So Father's righteousness is the faith of Messiah. Messiah's faith is Father's perfect righteousness. For all have sinned and come short of the glory of Yah, being justified freely by his grace through the redemption that is in Messiah Yahushua. The spilt blood is the forgiveness for those that receive the blood. So when you receive the blood over the doorpost, as in Egypt, or sprinkled on you, as in Sinai, that's Messiah. And that blood is the reconciling between you and your Father. It is the righteousness that Adam's lost. And that's why we receive redemption that is in Messiah. Messiah represents the perfect righteousness of the Father. That is when most people get confused when the Bible says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Yah, and the Word was Yah. I used to get confused and say, oh, Jesus is God. That's not what it's saying. You can't be with and be at the same time, right? So you and I walk to a store. We walk into the store together. I'm with you, but I'm not you. I'm with you. Does that make sense, y'all? In the beginning was the Word was with Yah. Okay, that part. So now Messiah is with the Father. He's not the Father. He's with the Father. Well, what does it say? It says, and the Word was Yah. That means the Word speaks for Yah. Again, using Hebrews. Yah in past time spoke to us through his prophets, now speaks to us through his Son. See, so he's saying, put it this way, in the beginning was the Word was with the Father, and the Word spoke for the Father. The Word represented the Father. See, that's a different thing. That's right. He represented the Father's righteousness. He's a witness. The Bible calls him the faithful witness. Why? He's a witness of what the Father is telling us. That's why I say, and the testimony of the Messiah is the spirit of prophecy. Why? Because he's bearing witness, his testimony of what the Father's Spirit is telling us. Very good. Let's continue. Verse 23. For all have sinned and come short of the glory of Yah, being justified freely by his grace through the redemption that is in Messiah Yahushua. Verse 25. Whom Yah has set forth to be a propitiation through faith in his blood, to declare his righteousness for the remissions of sins that are past through the forbearance of God. Why is that important? Well, first of all, we're not in the future yet. We're in the past, right? We're all judged by our past. Once we have sinned, we did it, sinned past, right? And so he says, we have propitiation. It's a big word, but what it means is that sprinkled blood. That's what it means. Remember, we read about the sprinkled blood in Exodus 24, how Moses, they killed the heifer and they killed the cow, the bullock, and they sprinkled the blood on the people. And they sprinkled the blood on the law. That sprinkled blood is propitiation. That means that's where you get your forgiveness because of the death, because of that sprinkled blood. Which my Messiah said, drink ye all of this wine. He said, because this is my blood for the New Testament. That means the new covenant between it with Israel, Judah, and their father. That's what the new covenant is in the Bible. Hebrews chapter 8, with Israel and Judah and their father. Through the blood sprinkling, as Peter said, through the sprinkling of the blood of Messiah. That's what propitiation means. That's right. It's the sprinkling of the blood by the sacrifice. So he said, whom Yah has set forth to be a propitiation through faith in his blood, to declare his righteousness for the remission of sins that are past. So that sacrifice of Messiah represented the sacrifice of all the animals sacrificed in Israel for the remission of sins that are past. Remember what Job did? He got up every morning and he made sacrifices for each of his children. And what did he say? He said, it could be that my children have sinned for the remissions of sins in the past. Okay, through the forbearance of Yah. Verse 26, to declare, I say, at this time, his righteousness, that he might be just and the justifier of him which believeth in Yahweh Shai. Where is boasting then? It is excluded. By what law? Of works? Nay, but by the law of faith. Therefore, we conclude that a man is justified by faith without the deeds of the law. Is he the most high of the Jews only? Is he not also of the Gentiles? Yes, of the Gentiles also. Seeing it is one Yah which shall, what's now, justify the circumcision by faith and the uncircumcision through faith. Circumcision is another word for the Hebrew. Uncircumcision is another word for Gentile. So when you see Paul talk about the circumcision, he's talking about the Israelite, the Hebrew Israelite. When he's talking about uncircumcision, he's talking about Gentiles or non-Hebrew Israelites. So he's saying he justifies us by faith because why? It's of us. Messiah is our bloodline. We are created to be Father's people. He chose us to be his people. But the uncircumcision through faith, because you got to come through us to be one of us with our Father. Does that make sense? You can't decide to just be one of us, to not be one of us and claim our Father. We're connected to the Father, and the Father's connected to us, just like Messiah is connected to the Father. We're connected to the Father forever because he chose us. That's why we are the circumcision. Versus the uncircumcision, who were not chosen by the Father, except they choose to come to the Father. They must come to the Father through one of us, particularly Messiah, who is one of us. He's our cousin. Okay, so you see here, there's an order of things after their kind. So when a Gentile comes through faith in Messiah to come to our Father Yahweh, and he comes to that Father Yahweh, right? We're of the same kind now. We're of the same kind now. Because why? Because we're both serving the same Father. Doesn't change the fact that there's a chosen bloodline, because that's the word of the Father, of a chosen bloodline. Doesn't change that. But the Father loves us both, does he not? He loves us both. He loves who he has chosen, and he loves who came through his chosen. Not that complicated. People try to make it complicated, but it really isn't that complicated. So now we see there's an order of things. There's an order that the Father has created. And what we also are seeing here is that anything that goes against Father's natural order is destructive to his earth and destructive to themselves ultimately. Okay, so that when we are brought into a born again experience in the spirit of the Father, what is going on is we are being restored to our natural moral order that he created. We are being restored to the covenant he made in that natural moral order that's going to cause us to be in harmony with him. Because when you're in harmony with him, you're in harmony with everything he creates that he wants to live and be with him forever. And that's what we want, to be one with the Father. When a marriage is successful in terms of the happiness of the two married parts and the happiness of the household, what happens? They become one flesh. That is a sexual term, but it's not only a sexual term, it's a spiritual term because they become of the same kind. Does that make sense, brethren? And so all of us in marriage that have a successful marriage is because the man and the woman have become of the same kind, after their kind. There's a union exactly after their kind. When people don't make it, when their marriages fail, it's because they're not of the same kind. If they were, they'd stay together. It's almost like when they used to call it birds and the bees. And I still don't quite understand why they called it birds and bees, but I kind of understand the birds, because you can see birds and you see them fly in pairs, and they fly in pairs forever. It's a beautiful thing. Different types of birds, but they always fly in pairs after their kind. You don't see a blue jay, for example, flying with an eagle, right? You don't see a pigeon, flying with a dove. You see them flying together after their kind, and they stay together. Okay? After their kind. And so when you have what you have on planet Earth is a rebellion after Father's natural order. It's a rebellion after Father's right. Blue Jay will become this. It's a rebellion after Father's natural order, though. That's the point here, right? It's a rebellion after his natural order, which creates destruction on the planet Earth. The destruction you're seeing on the planet Earth by man's ingenuity, you can call it that, it's after the kind of Asatan, which is why Asatan's kingdom is called Babylon, with the root, as we know, not that very complicated, Babel, which means confusion, because after Asatan's kind is confusion. Things that don't naturally fit are being brought together. Okay, things that are not after the same order are being brought together. There's confusion. In other words, their original reason for being brought into existence is being perverted and not used properly. And that's all Asatan's kingdom is about. That's right, Spare in the circle. That's exactly what it is. So Asatan's kingdom is all about the creation of things that were not made to be together, and the rebellion against the natural order that Father created. Okay, that's what it's all about in his kingdom, which is why the entire system will be destroyed, because it's not after the natural order. And this goes Revelation chapter 11 in the 7th trumpet. When the 7th angel sounded, or will sound very shortly, his trumpet. The 7th angel is soon to sound his trumpet. You want to know when? After the 144,000 give their message. The whole 6th trumpet is about the message and seal of the 144,000 and the people that receive the message and the people that reject the message. That's the 6th trumpet. And it goes with the 6th church, Philadelphia. Okay. And it goes with the 6th seal. And it goes with it all goes together. The 6 seals where the 144,000 are sealed. Okay. 6s. And it's an answer to Asatan. Look, 6, 6, 6. The 6th church represents the 144,000. The 6th seal represents the 144,000. And the 6th trumpet represents the 144,000. And it all prepares the people for the 7. The word, man. The word of the Most High. Okay. That's what I'm saying. If you just read this word, there's depths to it. And it's almost like, I feel like when I'm reading it, like I'm in a room and the Father's just teaching me from his word. And like, if there was a disturbance, if some other voices, if my wife called me, it's disturbing, and that's why when we see each other, when I see her reading the word, I don't bother her, because that's her learning from our Father. And I don't want to be the voice to come in and disturb that lesson. See, and so in this earth, there are many voices Asatan will bring to you to try to disturb, to confuse you, to stop. But if you could just get by yourself with the word and the Father's Spirit, he can teach you things that nobody else can. In the way that he knows you can receive it. Okay, he knows like nobody else. Revelation chapter 11, verse 15, the 7th angel. Revelation chapter 11, verse 15. And the 7th angel sounded, and there were great voices in heaven saying, the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our master and of his Messiah, He shall reign forever and ever. And the 24 elders which sat before Yahweh on their seats fell upon their faces and worshipped Yahweh, saying, We give thee thanks, O Yahweh Al Shaddai, which art and wast and art to come, because thou hast taken to thee thy great power and hast reigned, and the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come, and the time of the dead, that they should be judged, and that thou shouldest give reward unto thy servants the prophets, and to the saints, and them that fear thy name, small and great, and shouldest, look at this, destroy them which destroy the earth. You see, the whole Babylonian system goes against the natural order of Father Yah. That's why you have all the perversions that we see out here, particularly illustrated in the sexual perversions that we see that we have been through already. But you see that is an example of the entire system going against the natural order that Father has created. And again, one of the things we receive when we are born again is a restoration of the Father's Spirit to slowly bring us back to the proper natural order, okay, that He has created us to be. Praise the Most High. We cannot do it of ourselves, because if we could do it of ourselves, then we could justify ourselves. But there's a lot of religions and people out here that do all kind of things and worship all kind of things and do all kind of practices in an effort to make themselves do. You cannot make yourselves new. You can change your, the way you live, but it's not to the Father's natural order until you come to the Father. Does that make sense? How could you make yourself into the Father's natural order without the Father? That's arrogance. That's, again, back to Asatan telling you you could be your own God. That's where you're going. You know what I mean? So you need the Father to bring you back to the Father. And you need His Spirit to bring you back to what He originally intended you to become. Okay, now to Deuteronomy chapter 22. Deuteronomy 22. Now you understand where we're coming from when we talk about the natural order, the original order, and the confusion that Babylon creates, because that is what he's talking about here in Deuteronomy chapter 22. Now, last night we started at verse 13, because again, we started where the woman came into play, because we were talking about that. And then, so I told you that today we're going to start at verse 1 and go to 12, because that's now a different subject. See, he had two subjects in here. First one is about the order. The second one is about the woman, right? So and about marriage in a sense, right? So let's go back, Deuteronomy chapter 21. And let's start at verse 1. Deuteronomy 21. I'm going to read from verse 1 down to verse, let's see, from verse 1 down to verse 4. Okay? Because this is also loving your neighbor as yourself. Verse 1 to 4 of Deuteronomy 22, loving your neighbor as yourself. Thou shalt not see thy brother's ox or his sheep go astray, and hide thyself from them. Thou shalt in any case bring them again unto thy brother. If thy brother be not nigh unto thee, or if thou know him not, then thou shalt bring it unto thine own house, and shall be with thee until thy brother seek after it, and thou shalt restore it to him again. In like manner shalt thou do with his ass, so shalt thou do with his raiment, and with all lost thing of any of thy brothers, which he hath lost, and thou hast found. Thou shalt thou do likewise, thou mayest not hide thyself. Thou shalt not see thy brother's ass or his ox fall down by the way, and hide thyself from them. Thou shalt surely help them to lift them up again. So it's not necessarily strictly about animals, right? Because we don't live in an agrarian culture, right? But it's about anything. And I'll give you an example, because this really happened to me. My wife could bear witness. She still laughs about this. This happened actually it was in 1999. So it happened, what's today? It's not 24 years ago. Okay. Almost to this point, right? It's 24 years ago to now. Okay, let me share this with you. So we went through a struggle. I told you how I wasn't listening to the Father, and he spanked my behind. But he did, at the end of the spanking, reward us. Like, he rewarded us. So at that time we were still following Christmas. We didn't learn yet, but we were coming along. See how the Father worked with us. So the actual Christmas in December, we were just trying to get food, right? But less than a month later, I had gotten $10,000. Go how I got it, I'll go into another time. But I got 10,000. And in other words, the struggle ended. He had spanked me, and then he made me get this $10,000. So now we had money in our pocket, and we went to, Sam's Club, and we bought $400 with now. $400 is a lot of food now, but in 1999, it was a real lot of food, right? So we bought like $400. We had shopping carts full of food. We were so happy, right? And so then we went, my kids were into Barbie dolls. So we went to Toys R Us, and we were going to buy Barbie dolls, right? And get stuff for the kids. So I'm walking out of Toys R Us, right? We're walking out of it. And as we're walking out, I see a roll of money on the ground. And I'm like, man, Most High, the Lord blessing me. I got money in my pocket, and I'm finding money. And I picked up that roll of 20s, right? My wife looked at me and said, that ain't your money. I said, it was right there on the ground. I picked it up. I said, possession being 9/10 of the law and all that. Ain't no name on this money. And I put that money in my pocket. And so she kept bothering me, saying, but Poppy, that's not your money. I said, look, man, it's mine now. So just then, as we going back and forth, somebody comes out the store, and they just intently looking all over the ground. They're just looking all over the ground, man. And both my wife and myself know what they're looking for. And I said, sir, you lost something? He said, I lost all my Christmas money. And I pulled it out my pocket and gave it to him. Now, I'm going to be honest. If my wife wasn't there, I'd have been drove off by then. I'd have been drove off with that wad in my pocket, with my wad by then. But see, the Most High wouldn't have blessed me, see? So that belonged to my neighbor. That was his money. You understand? That was his money. So I have found his money. And by the fact that he came right out, looking, I seen him looking for it. I knew it was his. I knew what he was looking for. And I said, I think I found it. He was so thankful. Oh, thank you so much. He couldn't almost believe that I gave it back to him. I couldn't almost believe I gave it back to him either. But that's why I know there's such a thing as grace. I know there's a spirit. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. Because I gave it back to him. All right. Man. See, yes, that was a test. That was funny though. My wife's still laughing about it. That was funny. And we just still laugh. That was 24 years ago. Well, right now, 24 years ago, matter of fact. But see, that is what this chapter is talking about. Okay. That's loving your neighbor as yourself. And I want to tell you, I come to the understanding that with that example and others, that loving your neighbor as yourself is of the Father. I just told you, the act that I did was showing love for my neighbor, as what I would want somebody to do to me if I lost the water money like that, right? But I also told you it wasn't my first inclination. My first inclination, and my wife will tell you, I saw that money on the ground. I didn't stop to count it. I bent over and grabbed it and didn't even break stride. I was going. And she saw the money too. And she said, wait, like that, because I wasn't going to stop. But you see, the Messiah talks in a parable about two sons. The first son said, the father said, I need you to work in my vineyard, my field. And the son said, I'm going to go. And he never went. And he told the second son, I ain't going to go. And he went anyway. And he asked, which one did the will of the Father? And they said, the second. He said, that's right. Because the first, he said, that's why the scribes and Pharisees, he said, that's why the harlots and publicans will go into the kingdom before you. He said, because they repented when they heard the word of John the Baptist. You heard the word and you didn't repent. And you acting like you going, like you serving the Most High because of your position, and you not. And the publicans and harlots are serving the Most High because they repented. That's loving your neighbor as yourself. It's not a natural act, brethren. It's not a natural act. The Father's Spirit has to touch your heart for you to do that. Okay? Father's Spirit touch your heart. Really does. And for me, he's showing to me a lot of times, different times. You know, I had guys, there was guys that we grew up together. And like I said, I read my Bible through the first time when I was 15. And I know now I can look back and see that it had an effect on me in some areas, right? So I had a guy I knew, and his girl kept coming to my house behind his back. It was his girl. And I didn't really like him very much, but I didn't want to do that to him because that was his girl. So I told her no. Not that I didn't like her, not that I didn't want to have her, but that was his girl. So I said no. Now I know a lot of brothers would have said, dude, you crazy. And I know it. But my thought process came to my spirit and said, would you want somebody to do that to you and your girl? So I said no. And that happened to me twice. And then the second time it happened, it was one of my roommates in college, and he came to my girl, was trying to hit on my girl. And she told me, she said, you know, that nigga came to my room and tried to get me to have sex with him? I said, he did. And he didn't know I went to his house once, wasn't looking for his girl, but his girl was there and was offering herself to me. And I said no. And that was because of the Father's Spirit, because my flesh was thinking differently. And I walked away both times thinking, did I do the right thing? Did I do the right thing? But that's what I'm saying. It's not a natural act. It's according to our sinful nature. You know, right? It's, according to Father's order, it's in Deuteronomy 22, it's a natural act. But according to our sinful nature, that all of us have sinned, that's an unnatural act. Okay? And I'm telling you, that's the Father. It's not me. It's not my inclination. In those examples, I would have had sex with those two women, and I would have picked up that money and kept going. Like a lot of brothers. But the Father delivered me in those instances from myself. See? Praise the Most High. Deuteronomy chapter 22. Deuteronomy chapter 22, beginning at verse 5. Here's another one. Natural order. Okay? The woman shall not wear that which pertaineth unto a man, neither shall a man put on a woman's garment, for all that do so are abomination unto Yahweh thy Most High. In this one little verse, we see the snippet of the whole thing, right? A woman should not wear that which pertaineth to a man, neither shall a man wear a woman's garment. Let's talk about this for a second. I heard some people say, well, that means a woman's not supposed to wear pants. Well, pants weren't pants in biblical times. And pants aren't pants today. Like, for example, there are pants that are built for the shape of a woman. A woman has a natural areas of, well, actually, a woman carries more fat on her body than a man does in general. Just a woman. And we are pretty glad for some of that fat they carry, right? In certain areas that they carry, right? But the pants that the woman wears are built to fit those areas better than a man. Whereas a man's pants don't have those areas built into them because we don't have fat in those areas. You understand? So a man's pants are different than women's. This is not an injunction for a woman not to wear pants, is what I'm saying. That's not what it's saying. Okay? But there are pants made for a woman that a man should not wear. And there are pants made for a man that a woman should not wear. You should not wear that which is made for the opposite sex. Why do you think in Hollywood, they're always having black men dress up at some point, they dress up as a woman? Did you notice that? You ever notice that? In fact, isn't that why Dave Chappelle got cut off from $50 million at one time? Because he refused to dress like a woman? Yeah, it's part of a satanic ritual, and we can call it that. Why? Because why? It goes against what? The command of Yah, the natural order. It goes against the natural order. Okay. There are several ways that Asatan is trying to kill the Hebrew, or trying his best to preserve the non-Hebrew, sometimes mixing the seed with the Hebrew. We talked about this. The feminization of the Hebrew male, the separation of the female Hebrew from the male Hebrew to break up the family and therefore stop the procreation. There's all types of, and then of course there's the drugs and the disease that they're trying to bring on us to shorten our life and to kill us. See? Like, for example, there are countries in Africa where the fertility rates are 5, 6, 7 children per woman, but they don't live to be past 60. See, there's a battle going on. You can see it right there. There's a battle going on. The Father's blessing them with fertility, and certain men are trying to kill that. See? So there's a battle going on. But here we're talking about the natural order. And so, for example, I think Jamie Foxx is the greatest example of this. He got famous on television. Like, he was probably doing nightclubs and all that. But he got famous on television by doing Wanda, by becoming Wanda. Yeah. When he became Wanda, he was dressing like a woman, acting like a woman. And then all of a sudden he went from being Wanda to being Django, because he had first become Wanda, right? Then he went to become Django, a bad brother, right? So, but first he had to be Wanda. Isn't that amazing? See, but that's how they do it. Then there's this dude that's big, a brother that's big in the Hollywood, and all of his movies. I don't even remember his name, but some of y'all are gonna tell me his name right now. He dresses like a woman. In all of his movies, he has a role where somewhere in the movie he's gonna dress like a woman. What is this dude's name? And he does. That's right. Perry. That's right. Perry. That's it. Tyler Perry. That's him. He does. See, y'all knew. But that's what I'm saying. Why do you think he's making this so big? There you go. Entertainment, brothers and sisters. Asatan setting us up to think that entertainers should be our examples and leaders. Being entertained is cool, but don't ever think that's your example. Don't ever think that that's the example of what Father wants from you. They're always interviewing them for what their thoughts are about stuff. Don't ever think that's what Father wants from you. They had a basketball player the other day come into Washington, Kyle Kuzma, wearing all this whole pink thing with this long pink thing, and they call that fashion. But you see, it's right. It's after an unnatural order of the Father, the natural order of Asatan, and it's an entertainment. And so they're using, the Asatan has slickly exalted the entertainment world so that brothers that would not otherwise, that were 6'10", 6'9", wouldn't be good for nothing but standing on a ladder or whatever, but they can make millions of dollars, and we could all think that they're brilliant, and we can all think that there are leaders. There are moral leaders, and they're not. They're not. Actually, because of that honesty myself, I refuse to watch any Tyler Perry movies. After I saw a couple of them, and I said, wait, what's this brother doing? And it didn't catch me at first. And I said, wait a minute, how come this brother always dressing like a woman? How come and then I found out how big he got, how much he blew up. And then Dave Chappelle came out and said, they wanted me to do that. And I said, no. And then they blacklisted me. And I thought, oh, now it all makes sense. You want to get on the big screen? It's Asatan's screen. You got to perform for him. You got to do things for him. Okay? Especially if you're a Hebrew. Especially if you're a Hebrew. And more even especially if you're a Hebrew male. Absolutely. They all do that. They all do that. They have to. The more money you see them make, it's the more sure you know they made that deal with Asatan. Because this is his world. And people have a hard time believing that. But you don't get to that level of wealth in this world of Asatan's Babylon without making a deal with him. And you don't get to keep that money if you leave him. You must give it all up. Okay, you don't get to keep it. I don't care who you think you are, what you think you saved. That dollar bill belongs to him. Render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's. That's Caesar's money. And I don't care how much you done made and saved. They can take it tomorrow. What the Bible calls it, the Bible says sometimes riches have wings like a dove and it flies away. Okay, flies away. Okay, and you got all of it. It used to be, it started off when rap started off, not to get too far, but when rap started off, it was about the urban experience. That's how rap started. It was an urban experience. Back in the 70s, like late 70s, people started rapping. It was an urban experience. It was testifying of the urban experience, particularly in places like South Central Los Angeles, like Harlem, like the Bronx. You know, it was testifying of an urban experience. Okay, that's how it started. Then it went from there to getting into a gangster experience during the crack era when they came out with gangster rap, because now brothers were killing each other and it became about the gangster experience. Then some people like NWA and then like KRS-One, they started trying to educate you as to what was really happening behind the scenes of this thing, right? They were trying to educate you as to what was really happening. So it became almost like a message. Well, then some point through the 90s into the 2000s, it became effeminated. It became effeminate. First, it started more and more disrespecting the women, calling them bitches and hoes. It started doing that. It started glorifying calling women bitches and hoes. And then it went from there to the effeminate side almost. So you start seeing them, you know, they went from covering themselves in tattoos to putting on dresses and wearing pink. Again, Asatan slowly bringing you through the entertainment world into the unnatural order of Babylon. Okay, but praise the Most High. How could I repeat all this to you? How could I even verbalize this to you? Because of the Father's Spirit. That's why. The Father's Spirit allowed me to see what's going on. Allows all of us to see what's going on. Once we're attuned to His Spirit, He starts showing us, oh, let me tell you what's going on. Okay, let me show you what's going on. Just visiting asked, did the dress code of the Bible have something to do with hygiene? Yes. I can say it based on this verse. He told the Levites when they were going to go into the sanctuary to do service for him to wear linen, all linen. And the reason he said is because I don't want you sweating. He told the Israelites before they met with the Father on Mount Sinai to wash your clothes and don't come at your wives before they met with him on Sinai. So there was a cleanliness, there was a hygiene involved. Of course, the Pharisees took it way farther than that, and Messiah had to break that up for them because they wanted you to wash every time you went outside, every time you walked somewhere, you had to come back and wash yourself. And then, of course, the Muslims went all kind of crazy because if you go to work and you work with Muslims like I have done, they'll go into you'll see water all over the place in the bathroom. Why? Because the men come in the bathroom, they wash themselves, I don't know, 3 or 4 times during the course of the workday, maybe more, because they pray 5 times a day. And they take their shoes off and they put their feet in the sink and they wash their feet in the sink. And then they do it all the time. That's what happens when you go in man's religion. You just went off. Father gave us something in the natural order. Man trying to create his religion, he goes off the deep end. Okay, he goes off the deep end. But yes, it had a lot to do with hygiene. A lot to do with hygiene. And then he told them to dress so that if they went up to a high place, their bottom wouldn't be seen. Their behind and their hind parts and their private parts wouldn't be seen. Yeah. Yep. Yes, purification. They were very into that in the Bible, in Leviticus. After a woman had her monthly cycle, they make sure that the sheets were washed. She couldn't even sleep in the same bed as her husband when she had a monthly cycle, so that the blood would not go on him. The blood is an important thing. Purification has a lot to do with blood. Okay. Purification has a lot to do with blood. Because the life is in the blood, and the Father does, He don't want us eating it. He don't even want it getting on us. Yeah, they were basically separated. They couldn't sleep in the same bed as their husband. I mean, they could be in the same house, but they couldn't be in the same bed. They weren't completely out of the camp, but they were definitely separate bed. And the bed that she slept on when the cycle was over, they washed all of that stuff. They washed every sheet she was on and everything. It's totally cleanliness and purification. But my point is, let's go by what the Bible says and not try to add to it and go overboard. That's what people do. As far as the blood, well, now we have things that women can wear to stop leakage. It's different. I would still, wash the sheets after that cycle, but you have now, there's modern ways of stopping the blood flow, if you know what I mean, that women have. Whereas back at that time, it was just a rag, basically. Just a special rag that they had for that purpose. Okay. But nowadays they have other preventive measures of stopping the blood. Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay. Deuteronomy, but it's the same principle. The principle is cleanliness, right? That's the principle. Being clean, avoiding the blood, and then avoiding confusion. Deuteronomy chapter 22. Again, let's start at verse 5, and let's go from verse 5 and read verse 6. The woman shall not wear that which pertaineth unto a man, neither shall a man put on a woman's garment, for all that do so are abomination unto Yahweh thy most high. If a bird's nest chance to be before thee in the way, in any tree or on the ground, whether they be young ones or eggs, and the dam sitting upon the young, upon the eggs, thou shalt not take the dam with the young. See? So even in how you eat stuff, you're mindful of the nature of it. So if you're taking the eggs, don't take the mother and eat it with the eggs. I just learned this year. So I don't eat eggs with chicken. That's just me. I mean, let me not, please. I don't want to put my conviction on you. But that principle hit me this year. And I started thinking, man, I can't eat eggs with chicken. I could eat eggs with steak, right? And I like steak with my eggs. I could eat eggs with fish, but I can't eat eggs with chicken. But that's the truth, though, isn't it? Because the egg represents a new chicken, and then I have a chicken. Anyway, yeah, there's that. There's that. I'm just saying, though, and again, Imana, don't take my conviction for yours. If you're not convicted on that, don't worry about it. I'm just saying, it just hit me this year. My wife would tell you, I said, you know what? I was eating. I said, wait, this is an egg, and this is a chicken. Egg and a chicken. I thought, no, I don't know if I should do that. I don't see. I don't want to say that, Imana. It's no bueno if you think it is. It's no bueno if you think it is. Put it that way. If you're okay with it, do you. Do you, bro. If you're okay with it, do you. I got to be careful with some of y'all. But yeah, but it said don't take the eggs and the mother. Don't take the bird and the eggs. Yes, pray about it, Imana. No, that's true. Pray about it and let the Most High Spirit guide you in what you should do. Right? I'm just saying, that's why I came across and I said, that's for me. So I have steak with eggs, right? I don't have steak with milk, though. I don't even drink cow's milk anymore, but if I did, I couldn't have steak with the cow's milk. So I done killed the mother of the cow to eat it, and then I'm drinking her milk with that. You understand? Or, that kind of thing, I don't know, it hit me in my conscience that way. So, verse 7, but thou shalt in any wise let the dam go and take the young to thee, that it may be well with thee, that thou mayest prolong thy days. So he's looking at how you treat the animals. So he's saying, okay, you want the eggs, to eat the eggs, you eat the eggs, but you let the mother go. You don't take the eggs and kill the mother. Let the mother go. She can have more eggs. So you got your eggs, the mother can keep going and have more eggs. Okay, so that I just praise him. He looks at details like that. But again, he's explaining to us our survival, our nutrition with the natural order. Right, with the natural order. Okay, our nutrition and the natural order. That's the Father's way. Okay. Verse 8. When thou buildest a new house, then thou shalt make a battlement for thy roof, that thou bring not blood upon thy house, if any man fall from thence. Again, when you build your house, what is he talking about here? Safety. He's talking about safety. Build your house so that people don't hurt themselves in your house. So you have a flat roof, you should have a fence around the roof so nobody will fall. And he said that thou bring not blood upon thine house. So if somebody accidentally falls off the roof of your house because you didn't have nothing to protect somebody from falling, it's your fault. So he's talking about safety. This is before there ever was anybody building a house. He's telling you, build your house and make it safe so that nobody can hurt themselves coming into your house. Because if you built your house unsafe and something happens to somebody, it's your fault. Isn't that something? Praise the Most High. Now, let me ask you, do people build unsafe houses today? Yes, they do. I think about how, if you heard like in California, like people, if you go to California, like when I come into San Diego, people be building the houses into these hills. They build them into the hills. Like, and like you go to LA and you're there's a valley, and on the top of the valley, there's these hills, and people build these houses into the hills. And that's dangerous they do it because they want the view of the ocean or the view of the overall city or the valley. But it's dangerous because they get earthquakes over there and them houses collapse. And now now they're getting all these fires, and the fires are burning up all of them houses, burning them all up. And people are dying in those areas, stuck there because them houses were built in a place they shouldn't have been built. Okay, built because somebody desires a view. Yeah. Or if you're living in a place and you can see the land is like here in Florida, it's eroding. The land is eroding. The ocean is becoming more and more inland, and the beachheads and the coastline is eroding. So it's not smart to put your house there. It's not smart, and you can see it like it's just coming closer and closer. So why would you put your house? Well, because people want the view of the ocean. They want the view of the ocean. They want, and it's nice to be near ocean, but I don't want to be no place where a hurricane is mostly going to come or it's going to just erode. That made no sense, but people do it because man wants what man wants. Man wants what man wants. Okay, they want what they want, and that's the whole point, isn't it? There's a natural thing, and there's what man wants. And a lot of times when you're in sin, it's at odds with what the Father Yah wants. Okay. Verse 9, thou shalt not sow thy vineyard with divers seeds, lest the fruit of thy seed which thou hast sown and the fruit of thy vineyard be defiled. Let me ask you something. Do you think farmers mix seeds today? Do you think they mix different seeds to create different varieties of things? Do they do that? Do they create new types of vegetables or new types of fruit? Yes. I was kind of surprised. Before I started getting sick from it, one of my favorite fruits, my top 3 for sure, was the banana. Love bananas. And I looked up, I did a little study on bananas and didn't realize the history of the modern banana. The modern banana isn't the original banana. It was a mixture of scientists creating different seeds and putting them together. And then what happened, I think it was the Chiquita company that had, like, they went to, you know how some of our European friends do. They go down into certain areas and offer a lot of money and just take over thousands of acres of land. They do it in different places. They do it in Guatemala. They do it in Colombia. And they just take over thousands of acres of land. Okay. And they'll put stuff there, like whatever they're growing. We're talking about bananas now. So they do it there. So in the 1950s, the banana crop that they normally have wasn't the same variety that we are now normally have here in the United States. That died. It died. And so they need, because it was dying and they were going to lose money, they needed to come up with a new banana. And so they mixed different types of seeds and they put it together until they had a banana that grew, and that they can make it grow. It could grow sweet, and it can withstand gases that they put on it so that they can make it travel long distances. And that's what we got now. That's what we got. That's right. Corn, in order to stop it from being eaten by locusts or being destroyed by weather, they started mixing the seeds with chemicals. And so it's resistant to all of these different elements, and it can grow in a lot of different places, and it can grow cheaper, and it kills us. It kills us. See, so they're coming up with all of, and that's what they're continually doing. And that's just like one example. We're talking about the fruit world, but it's happening in all the food world, and it's happening in the animal kingdom, and it's happening in everything involving nature. It's happening. The Asatan is mixing things and doing things that are outside the natural order. Exactly. That's why we have food allergies, the way we have the food. The problem is not with your body. It's what the food is doing to your body. So when we talk about, like last, I was talking about some of the sisters being overweight. It's not because they're lazy. It's not because they don't want to work out. It's the food. It's the food. It's in the food. And people will tell you, I've seen people move to other countries and just eating the same style they were eating in America, start losing weight. There was this brother and sister moved from here, and they went to Panama. They went to Panama on the Pacific side of Panama, the Pacific coast side. And he was just eating the same fish that he ate here, rice, fish, potatoes. And he just said all of a sudden his high blood pressure went away and he started losing weight. And another dude, Spanish brother from San Diego, he said he was 250 pounds and he was overweight, and he tried dieting, and he moved to the Philippines and just started eating the local fish, the local chicken that they had. He stayed away from the fast food joints, but he said he didn't exercise or anything. And all of a sudden he's just lost like 50 pounds. It's in the food. See, it's in the food. And what it is, brethren, I'm not a doctor, so don't take it as doctor's advice, but when man start mixing seeds like this, it takes away nutritional value from the food. So that when you're eating something, you're not getting the same nutritional benefit as the creator intended you. I read again somewhere where it said an apple in 1900 was 100 times more potent than the apple you eat today. It had 100 times more nutrition than the apple you eat today. Okay? Or some multiple times. Maybe I'm wrong on the 100 times, but it's some multiple of times more nutrition then than it does now, because of what man has done in mixing the seeds to create different varieties. It's lowered the nutritional value. And I didn't take that into account when I was a fruitarian. I was a fruitarian for a number of years, and I didn't take that into account, how I was really thinking I was eating the healthiest I could eat, but I wasn't getting the nutritional value out of my fruit because I needed more different types of food to try to make up for the lack of nutrition that I was getting. So all the food now is defiled. All of it is defiled. Closest thing you could do, I've seen from my observation, is go to a country where they're growing it and naturally growing it and giving it to you, whether it's a cow, a chicken, an egg, a piece of fruit. It's growing right there naturally, and you can eat it like that naturally. That's the best thing you could do. You get it commercial, and you're getting defiled food. And some of us got no choice. This is where we are. Like I'm not in Ecuador. Like I don't live in, the Philippines. So I'm getting what I got here. I got to go to the store and get it. And it's all defiled. I know it though. See, this is where I'm praying and let the Most High guide our steps, man. I'm trying to do the best I can right now. But that's what it is. See, that's what it is. Okay. Verse 10. Here's an obvious, this is really an object lesson too. Thou shalt not plow with an ox and an ass together. So you don't plow a cow in the same yoke as a donkey. Two different kinds. They're not after the same kind. They don't go together. This is a cow and this is a donkey. One's in the horse family after its kind, and the other one's in the bullock and cow family after its kind. Two different kinds. Verse 11, thou shalt not wear a garment of divers sorts as of woolen and linen together. Woolen and linen together. Now, let me ask you right now, what are clothes made out of today that you buy? What are they made out of? What are clothes made out of that you buy today? What are they made out of? Is it just wool and linen? There's cotton. What else? There's cotton. What else? What else? What else is it made of? Silk. What else? Yeah, right. Polyester, rayon. That's right. Rayon, polyester. What's this other stuff? They got stuff that stretch. What is it called? There's nylon, rayon, polyester, wool, cotton, and sometimes it has all of this stuff. Spandex. Sometimes it has all of these different things mixed together. Right? And how are you going to separate that? But this is the world which we live in. And wait, where do these clothes come from? Who's making these clothes? They coming from Philippines, they coming from India, they coming from Mexico, they coming from wherever these factories are. But fathers say, you should have one set of, should have one set of thing, man. Cotton or wool or whatever. China, right? So this is the world we live in, brethren. Wait a minute. Verse 12. Thou shalt make thee fringes upon the four quarters of thy vesture, wherewith thou coverest thyself. He said, make fringes on the four quarters of the vesture. So apparently at that time, there was a vesture that you had. A vesture would be your top thing, I suppose, the top part of what you're, not the bottom part, but the top part of what you, right? It says the fringes upon the four quarters of thy vesture, the four corners of your shirt, you're making fringes. Because then what did we do? Did those guys go to the store to buy clothes? How did they get their clothes? How did the Israelites, when they first came into the land, how did they get their clothes? How did they get them? It's like at the bottom of a shirt, yeah, but how did they get them? That's right. Everything the Israelites wore, they made. Where on the earth do we see that today? We see that in Africa. We see it in East Asia, right? The people make their own clothes. They made their own clothes. That's right. They spin their yarn. Where did they get the material from? Where you had silk that you got from plants. You had cotton that you got from plants, right? Cotton and silk. You had also wool that came from the animals. They'd raise the animals, the sheep, and they get the wool from there. You shear them, right? You shear them, and you get all of that hair, and you make clothes out of it. Okay, you had cotton, you had linen, you had wool, and you can make that clothes. So what is he saying now? Let's go into this now. So at the time, you got to think about what they were doing. So they were making their own clothes. So he's telling them, don't go get cotton from the field and mix it with the wool you get from the animal. Make it out of one thing. If you're going to make it out of cotton, make it out of cotton. If you're going to make it out of wool, make it out of wool. But make your clothes out of one material. Does that make sense, y'all? Make your clothes out of one material. Don't try to mix the materials and make clothes. If you're going to, you're going to pick your cotton, make your cotton out of cotton clothes. You got cotton clothes. You got linen. Okay, make the linen clothes, one piece linen. And then you got wool, make your clothes out of wool. Well, today they don't do it that way. And we don't make our own clothes. We don't have no say in how the clothes are made, do we? We have no say in it. And so why did he ask for the fringes? Well, we knew about that because they should remember the commandments. They put fringes for them to remember the commandments. That's what the fringes were for them to remember the commandments. I want you to put fringes on your garment, and I want you to put blue ribbons on there, because that would help you remember my commandments. That's what he said. I want you to remember my commandments. And he said, this is going to help you remember my commandments. So I can find it. Yep. Yep. So nowadays, what is the food? What is the food creation and the clothes creation? What is it based on? It's based on greed. Number one. So whatever can be made cheaply and quickly and sold at the most money, that's what it's based on. And it doesn't matter whether it's healthy, whether it's in the natural order of nature that Father created. That's not even a consideration. What's considered is how quickly can it be made, how cheaply can it be made, and how much can it be sold for, right? And how fast can it be sold? That's what everything is based on now. Everything we eat, everything we wear is based on that. How much does it cost? How quickly can it get to market? How long can we make it last until it's sold? How many can we sell? Everything. The clothes are based on that. The food is based on that. Okay. Your housing is based on that. How can we build these houses cheaply and fast? And how much can we get per square foot? Everything is based on greed. When the Bible says that the love of money is the root of all evil, they're not talking about just having money itself. They're talking about your greed for money. How greedy are you? How much is it important for you to get how much profit? How much is enough? That's greed. That's what it talks about. So really, the synonymous term for the love of money is greed. And greed runs everything on the planet. Greed and covetousness runs everything. The whole system is based on greed. Greed and power. Okay? That's right. And it doesn't matter. They don't care how they get it. It's about getting it. They even have people rapping, I got to get mine. You got to get yours. Cash rules everything around me. Get the money. See? Greed. All based on greed. Yep. All based on greed. So that's why all of these principles are going out the window in the world of Babylon, because it's not based on principles, it's based on greed. So if you can make a garment of wool and linen together and sell it for a lot of money and make it quickly, they'll do that. They don't care what the Bible says about it. If you can mix different seeds together and make a banana that's sweeter, that'll last longer when it gets traveling across the world, no matter what it does to people, that's better. Let's do it. Make more money. Greed. Okay. Whereas what we just read, the principles we just read, we saw principles of safety in building a house. We saw principles of caring about the animal when you're eating it. That's why I say to y'all that the Indians are the northern tribes, not only from the book of Hosea, which we read. When you read the book of Hosea, you'll get a much clearer idea, not only what it says about them in terms of, First Kings, how they were scattered, but when the Caucasian man came to the shores of what is now the United States of America, the Indians had millions of buffalo, and they used the buffalo skin to make teepees. That is their tents. Their tents. They made out of buffalo skin, animal skin. They would eat the buffalo, they would kill the buffalo, and they would pray to this great spirit and say, thank you for providing me. And thank for this animal for dying for me that I can eat. And they preserved the meat, and they used each portion of the buffalo. And there was millions of them. When the Caucasian man came and he wanted to shoot, he brought his gun with him and he wanted to shoot for game. They call it a game, like entertainment. The animal almost became extinct. Very close to being extinct in just a few years. That's right. The same with elephant for the tusks. The same with tigers for their skins for rugs. When it became a game of what man wanted, that's when things started changing. When the Indians were living here, they only killed what they needed to kill to survive. And they always thanked the Great Spirit for providing them and thanked the animal for giving its life for them. That's more like what we're looking at here. Don't take the dam with the eggs. Don't take the bird, the mama bird with the eggs. Take the eggs, leave the mama bird alone. Or take the mama bird and leave the eggs alone. But don't take them both. Don't boil the baby cow in the mother's milk. That's disrespect to nature and to the cow. See how it teaches us how to do these things? But man teaches us to go against these things because of greed, because of money. Why do black men dress and go into drag queen mode and start wearing dresses on TV? Because they want to make money. Because they want to get paid. And the devil tells them by making money and getting paid, you're among the high ones on the earth. And they will do that for that purpose, to go against nature, to wear that which pertaineth to a woman and call it comedy. Making fun of us. They laughing at us, not with us. Yeah. They're laughing at us, not with us. Well, praise the Most High. The next chapter, we come back after the break, we're going to start chapter 23. We're going to start chapter 23. Praise the Most High. Until then, may the Most High bless you and keep you. May he cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you, and may he lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. My apologies for going a little over today than we normally would. I didn't mean to do that, but it is what it is. Please be safe out there. Shalom.